Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples. I am Elaine Cocroft, and I'm currently serving as president of the Board of Trustees. As most of you know, our minister, Tony Fisher, is on sabbatical, and I'm pleased to welcome Rabbi Adam Miller as our guest speaker today. Rabbi Miller serves as the senior rabbi at Temple Shalom in Naples, Florida. A graduate of the University of Kansas, Rabbi Miller was ordained by Hebrew Union College, a Jewish institute of religion, in 2003. Rabbi Miller served for 12 years on the Commission for Social Action, the national justice arm of the Reform movement. He wrote the chapter on Jewish values and healthcare for the book Moral Resistance and Spiritual Authority: Our Jewish Obligation to Social Justice. He is also the host of a podcast, One Spark at a Time. I'm impressed. Rabbi Miller and his wife Jennifer, an attorney at Henderson, Franklin, Stames, and Holt, live in Naples with their 3 boys. Next, I'd like to thank everyone who is making today's service happen. Our co-music directors, Sean and Abby Allison, Dan Goodsit and John Forsyth in the AV room, our greeters and ushers, and of course the hospitality committee who makes our after coffee and cookies possible. Today's worship associate is Larry McCarthy, who is going to finish up the welcome.
Thank you, Elaine. Good morning. We're so glad that you've joined us, whether here in the sanctuary, out on the pavilion, or watching us on Facebook at home. We are no less grateful if you're actually watching the recorded service later on this week. If you're new to our congregation, we are especially grateful you found us. Our hope is to make you feel welcome and to help you find ways to connect. Here we learn and grow together and try to live our values both within and outside of these walls. If you found us online for the first time, we hope you email our administrator at office@naples.org. office@uunaples.org. This will let us include you on our list for emails about all the things that are happening here at UUCGN. We also remind our members and friends that you'll find information about all the upcoming events on the same website, uunaples.org, or in the email announcements and newsletters that are sent to you. If you are attending in person, please join us on the pavilion for coffee after the service. Now let's settle into this morning's service with the prelude, which is being presented by the RE Music Group, which we are calling the UU Ukes.
Good morning. Today is the final day of the RE, Religious Exploration class, before the summer break. And so I thought this would be a really great time to introduce to you the brand new group, the UU Ukes. We started just a few weeks ago. We got a few ukuleles, and we've learned 2 chords. We've learned how to strum. We've learned how to wait. We've learned how to sing Dona Nobis Pacem, which is called Grant Us Peace, which I thought would be a really great way to send them into their summer breaks. So thank you, everyone, for being here. We have a record showing, and please enjoy.
Thank you, Ukes. That was wonderful. This morning's opening words are by the late UU minister Louise A. Robeck. We come to this hour knowing that it is but an hour. Yet of all the hours in the week, this is the one that is set apart, an hour that is saved, an hour that is savored. It is time for us to recognize what gives life meaning, to honor what we value, to celebrate our lives. Let us fully savor this hour we have saved. Now, please join me as we read the chalice lighting response on the screen, and while Simon will also light the chalice. May this flame stir our hearts and remind us of our mission to be truly welcoming, to grow in mind and spirit, and to widen the circle of peace, justice, and love. Now, please rise as you're able as we sing our opening hymn, Morning Has Broken, number 38 in your hymnals. The words are on the screen.
Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. Sweet the rain's new fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung in completeness where God's feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light Eden saw plain. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day.
Stephanie St. John, our Director of Religious Exploration, planned to be with us this morning, but had to change her plans. However, she was able to tape her planned presentation to update us on the activities this year in the Religious Exploration program. So here is Stephanie's presentation.
Thank you for being here to celebrate RE today. Technology has made it possible for me to be in two places today, here with you and with my family celebrating my aunt's long and loving life. I want to take you on a little journey today. Many of you, through your committees, have collaborated with RE. We have brought Reverend Tony's vision into focus of a beloved community, working side by side, regardless of age, race, orientation, or background, and used our UU principles to make a difference in the world. I'll show you a little of what we've been doing. We began the year by exploring our 7 principles. We created our covenant together to have a safe and sacred space to explore. Through Spirit Play stories, we engaged in our UU heritage and delved into some of our Judeo-Christian roots with the story of Hanukkah. along with Buddhism this year. We not only explored, we searched out experts in the congregation, and we acted on our principles. Principle 1 became easy as we respected our guests. These are only a few of our experts. I am the photographer, and sometimes I am so engrossed in what we are doing, I forget to take the photos. Bill McCormick, with the Garden Committee, taught us about the many varieties of bromeliads and Principle 7, value our earth that we share with all beings. The children counted over 65 different varieties in our garden alone. Janet Hoffman and her team from the Garden Committee helped us start our butterfly garden, which is registered with the North American Butterfly Association and is a certified monarch butterfly garden. Through this project, we explored not only Principle 1 and 7, but Principle 4, grow by exploring what is true and right in life, all by learning the plight of our butterflies. And Principle 5, believing in our ideas and acting on them. We love the Garden Committee. Brad Cornell and Brittany Piersma continued our exploration into caring for our environment with a field trip to Barefoot Beach Park to learn about the endangered gopher tortoises and other wildlife along the way. As we've studied the environment and followed our covenant, we've grown into Principle 2, yearn to accept and learn about ourselves and others and the mystery. We've been working together, learning together, and playing together. Brad came back recently to help us create a habitat in our own backyard with Florida wildflowers so we can make a bigger difference. Martha Cornell, Linda Sweers, Steve Espinoza, and Abby Allison from the Music Committee have shared the love of music with our children. They've learned songs from other cultures and songs for social justice and explored drum circles and other instruments. Music is oftentimes cut from school budgets. This spring, Abby, Martha, and Linda introduced our RE youth to the ukulele, and now we have a new musical group, the Ukes. They gave their first concert on April 3rd. UUs are known for social action, and it is no different for our children. When people know what is right and take action, even if most people are quiet, we must do what is right. We explored the lives of MLK Jr., Rosa Parks, and Greta Thunberg while we were on Zoom. Principles 5 and 6. When we came back in person, we again got involved with weekend meals. Patty and Charlie Friedberg have really taught us the ropes. Ellie Kane volunteered to help too. We've worked with weekend meals a couple of times, and we really enjoyed it. We also collected items and collaborated with the whole congregation for Shy Wolf Sanctuary, and they came and taught us about their animals. The Caring Committee has been great to work with. In December, we created items to put inside holiday cards to cheer those who couldn't get out. No church would be complete without holiday celebrations. RE hosted the Fall Festival and Pumpkin Carving event. As you can see, it was a lot of fun. Some of our children performed for the Holiday Music Fest in December. For Easter Sunday, they handed out the flowers at the Flower Communion service. For Mother's Day, we collaborated with the Hospitality Committee to make vases and do flower arranging for the tables at coffee hour. David Sleeper taught us about flower arranging. He also taught us to paint. It is true that it takes a village to raise a child, and I want to thank all of you who have collaborated with us in RE by being special guests, greeters, and assistants. And also to those of you who have brought snacks and special materials that we have needed throughout the year. I want to especially thank the RE committee. You have been most committed to our youth and our programming to make sure that the young voices are heard. Jody, Tabitha, Patty, and Kim have been instrumental to give a voice to the needs of our youngest members. If you are here today, please stand. I appreciate all of your dedication and love for our children. Today, the youth need us. In 15 years, they will be the doctors, teachers, and professionals that we rely on. Thank you for this wonderful year and for being part of our lives. I'm looking forward to next year, aren't you?
Thank you again, Stephanie. It's really exciting to see what kind of things have been going on here and how much this has incorporated our entire congregation. Please remain seated now while we sing our centering hymn. I've got Peace Like a River, number 100 in your hymnals. The words are on the screen. We are singing 4 verses.
I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got tears like the raindrops, I've got tears like the raindrops, I've got tears like the raindrops in my soul. I've got tears like the raindrops, I've got tears like the raindrops, I've got tears like the raindrops in my soul. I've got strength like a mountain, I've got strength like a mountain, I've got strength like a mountain in my soul. I've got strength like a mountain, I've got strength like a mountain, I've got strength like a mountain in my soul.
Each week we set aside this time of community to share our individual joys and sorrows, and to remember those in our lives who are struggling or celebrating milestones. With this sharing, we hope the support of this community is felt, and our joys are amplified, and our sorrows lessened. First, we will acknowledge our joys. Take a moment to reflect quietly, or as I move my arm from your right to left, speak aloud the name or names of those you hold in your heart in joy. Now, as I move my arm once again, we'll go from this side. Please speak aloud the names of those you hold in your heart with concern or sorrow. As we look toward the wider community this morning, we hold in our hearts all those who were lost yesterday in the incident in Buffalo. And we hold in our hearts with concern their survivors whose lives had been unalterably changed so unnecessarily. For all those names unspoken, or for those who have no one to speak their name, we light a candle of community. The words for meditation this morning come from Reverend D. Scott Cooper, Assistant Minister of Congregational Life at the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Houston. Imagine one path, not one path, but many. Imagine a path forward for those who cannot imagine any path forward. Imagine a path forward for those who are forced to leave a homeland against their will. And for those unable to leave a war-torn homeland despite their lives being in danger. Imagine a path forward for those who leave their homes to make a better life for their families elsewhere. Imagine a path forward for those of us despairing because we do not seem to know our country nor our neighbors. Imagine a path forward for those who feel lonely. Truly, we know these paths will lead to hope, the roads will lead to beloved community, and the arc will bend toward justice because we have dared to travel with love in our hearts. Now please join together for a time of silence.
For those of you who do not speak Hebrew, I am going to be singing the words in Hebrew, then in English twice. So the things that I am singing in Hebrew, I will later say in English. וכשאני לעצמי אני, ואם לא עכשיו, אמתי, אם לא עכשיו, אמתי. If I am not for me, who will be? If I am just for me, what does that make me? And if not now, then when? If not now, then when? וכשאני לעצמי אני, ואם לא עכשיו, אמתי, אם לא עכשיו, אמתי. If I am not for me, who will be? If I am just for me, what does that make me? And if not now, then when? If not now, then when?
This reading was written by the late Reverend Linda Hansen, who served UU congregations in Iowa, Connecticut, and Wisconsin. Much of our human struggle is what we do not know or understand. It is often difficult not to want answers, or even more difficult, not to think that we have them already. May we experience what we do not know, not as an individual failure, but as an invitation to community. May we seek not the true answers so much as the true questions, knowing that true questions make our lives meaningful, even if sometimes restless in our journey. May we be grateful for the restless voices in our communities and within ourselves. Now we take time to show our gratitude for all that UUCGN accomplishes because of the generosity of time, talent, and treasure given by its members and friends. This morning's offering will be gratefully received. If you are watching our service, please consider sending a contribution. The information you need is on the screen.
How many roads must a man walk down before you can call him a man? How many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? Yes, how many times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many years can a mountain exist before it's washed to the sea? How many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? Yes, how many times can a man turn his head, pretending he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Yes, how many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? How many ears must one man have before he can hear people cry? Yes, how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
This reading comes from Reverend Jennifer Johnson, who is the minister at First Parish Church in Bridgewater, Massachusetts. These are anxious days. We are bombarded from all sides with new and unprecedented developments. And yet, there are some things we know for certain. We know that our blue boat home can in the glorious play of light and color on the horizon. Beneath the crust of cold earth, the crocuses and the daffodils are stirring. The energy of life and living is pulsing in them, and it's pulsing in us too. When we heed the pulse of life, we know what we need to do. To rise in the morning and rest into darkness, to put our hands, hearts, and minds to work, to meet those in our midst with compassion, to join with the vulnerable and speak truth to the powerful, to play with our youngest and hear the wisdom of our elders, to heal the sick and wounded.
Thank you, one and all, for the invitation to be here and speak with you this morning. I'm grateful to my friend, Reverend Tony Fisher, for the wonderful partnership that we share, creating opportunities for our congregations to work collaboratively to make our world more whole and holy over the years. And I am honored to be here while he is away to offer this message to you. As I was thinking about coming into this setting today, my mind kept wandering back to one of my favorite movies, Keeping the Faith. It stars Ben Stiller and Ed Norton and Jenna Elfman. The story tells of three childhood friends who grow up. One of them, Ben Stiller, becomes a rabbi. Ed Norton becomes a Catholic priest, and Jenna Elfman is their friend. Without spoiling the plot, in one scene near the end of the movie, Ben Stiller, as the rabbi, is rushing to get to a destination. Ed Norton, the priest, is running with him, and they're in New York City, and they stop at an intersection where the sign says, "Don't walk." They're standing there waiting, and finally Norton's character yells out, "Why are you waiting for a sign? This is New York City, just go." It is at once speaking to that moment in the movie and at the same time to our deeper experience in life, friends. Acknowledging that even when we know that something is the right thing to do, when we know we have to be somewhere to do something, we sometimes hesitate, pausing and waiting for a sign before we actually move forward. Delaying action when we know it to be the right thing to do is a path often toward regret. Pastor Martin Niemöller, a Protestant minister in Nazi Germany, spent his days after the Holocaust lamenting that he did not do more to stop the atrocities that had taken place. He often shared with audiences some form of this teaching. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, he said, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. Within our Jewish community, we often quote Pastor Niemöller's words as a powerful reminder of those who had a chance to act, to do the right thing, and yet remained silently on the sidelines until it was far too late. Over these last couple of months, some have returned to these words, adding a new refrain. Then Russia came for the Ukrainians, and They asked, how would we finish that sentence? I'm sure in your community like ours, people reacted. Some responded by donating, giving from their hearts. Others lent their voices to calls for peace. But now it's been going on for months. This is not a single moment, but an ongoing situation. One that's snarled up in a tangled web of problems that have all left us feeling exhausted. Consider that we are 2 years now into a pandemic that we once thought could be beaten by social distancing, isolation, and vaccines. And yet now many of us feel that the concept of victory has dissipated, replaced by the acceptance of a situation in which there may not be an end. Many grow weary of experiencing the growing divisions and the widening gaps between our fellow Americans, even between members of families. We find it increasingly difficult to agree with others, and we are simply overwhelmed by all the things that are happening in our lives, by stories of natural disasters, of climate shifts, human rights violations, increasing crime, inflation, and yesterday, once more, senseless gun violence happening here in our country. All of these things weigh down upon us. And yet we must turn to Pastor Niemöller's words, once used only for his experience, but to think about how they impact us today. When the world faced natural disasters exacerbated by climate change, then the world witnessed human rights violations across the continents. When our nation reckoned with a plague of gun violence, when a disease racked our world, killing millions, then what follows next? Turning to our shared sacred texts, we find a pair of stories that give us valuable insight in this moment. One is from the Joseph saga that concludes the book of Genesis. In the middle of Joseph's story, we learn that he has correctly predicted a 14-year cycle in which there will be 7 years of great abundance, followed by a massive famine in Egypt. Anticipating the lean years, Joseph orders all the people of Egypt to store their grains in large silos, enabling them to survive and sustain through those lean years. And yet further to the north, back in the land of Canaan, Joseph's father, Jacob, and the rest of Joseph's siblings are experiencing that same famine. We read an interesting exchange between Jacob and his children. When Jacob realizes that there's grain for sale in Egypt, he turns to his sons and he rebukes them, saying, "Why are you staring at each other? I have heard that there are provisions for sale in Egypt. Go down that way and buy us provisions that we may live and not die." Jacob's message here operates on many levels. When he is saying to his children, "I have heard that there are provisions," he is chastising them for being poor leaders. Here he is, an old man, little out of touch, and yet even he knows that there's food for them in Egypt. They should have been intelligent and aware enough to have learned the same thing. Additionally, Jacob is challenging that next generation. They are starving. Their very existence is at stake, and yet they have done nothing. In essence, they are waiting for someone else to take the lead and tell them what to do. Jacob's beautiful words, "Why are you staring at each other?" make it clear that we all have a responsibility to act as individuals. When we see a problem, we should not be waiting for someone else. We need to jump into action and address that problem ourselves, not waiting for someone else to push us there. Why are you staring at each other? Is the message for us too. Who are we waiting to address these problems that we see? Nothing can change unless we take the lead. This message is even more clear a little later in Torah. When we read in the book of Exodus of Moses and the Israelites, they have just exited from Pharaoh's grasp, and they're standing at the shore of the Sea of Reeds. Pharaoh's army is approaching them from the rear, closer and closer. They know their lives are in danger, yet in front of them is this body of water. And what are they doing? The people are standing around, numb with fear, uncertain of their path. At this existential moment, the Israelites actually turn to Moses and they say to him sarcastically, "What? Were there not enough graves in Egypt that you had to bring us out here to die?" The rabbis read this and wonder if perhaps the 10 plagues conditioned the Israelites to wait for Moses or God to do things for them. That perhaps they became too passive, witnessing the power of God. Why else would they stand around with Pharaoh's army marching upon them? But even Moses doesn't know what to do. He turns to the people and says, "Don't worry, God will save you." Finally, we read in the text God's response to Moses. "Ma titzchak alai." Why are you crying out to me? God asks. God tells Moses that the Israelites need to stop waiting and start acting. He says, "Have them go forward into the water, and you raise up your arms and your staff that the water will part." The core of God's teaching is clear. Don't wait for signs. Just act. Rabbi Ferdinand Isserman captures this when he says so beautifully, "Pray as if everything depends upon God. Act as if everything depends on you." It is our individual responsibility to step forward and take action. It's not enough to pray for the end of violence in Ukraine, to end homelessness and hunger, gun violence in our nation, or any other crisis. We must act to make that hope, that dream, a reality. As much as we dream of a better tomorrow, we sense that this world is not what we hope it to be yet. Like Jacob's children and the Israelites, all too often we are just staring at each other, numb with fear like the Israelites, not sure what to do, maybe even waiting for someone else to get it started. Eric Einstein, an Israeli actor, singer, and songwriter, composed many of Israel's most famous folk melodies, including a classic song, "Ani ve'ata," "You and I Can Change the World." Rabbi Rick Jacobs, the president of the Union for Reform Judaism, notes that the message of the song grows even more powerful when you make a simple change in the Hebrew. The word atah in the song, "Ani ve'ata," starts with the letter aleph. But if you change that aleph for an ayin, something interesting happens. Now, for those who are not familiar with Hebrew, aleph and ayin sound the same. They're both silent letters, but the meaning is radically different. When you substitute the ayin for the aleph, instead of saying "you and I can change the world," the Hebrew translates as "I and now will change the world." Excuse the grammar just a little bit there, but the message is clear. When is the best time to change our world? When is the best time for us to act? Now. Now is our time to act and address the problems that we see before our eyes. Now is the time for us to lift up our voices and call out for change. Now is the time for us to transform this world into the place that we know it can be. Now is the time for us, friends, to stop standing around and to actually do something about the challenges that we see. That this year may be one in which we do change our world for the better. This is the time to be able to say that when Russia came for Ukraine, when the scourge of gun violence threatened our future, when climate change endangered our world, I acted. We acted. Ani v'ata nishaneh et ha'olam. You and I can change the world. Ani v'ata nishaneh et ha'olam. I and now, we must change the world. Act now, because it all depends on you. I want to end with a teaching that may be familiar to you from Gandhi. Be the change you want to see in the world. If we want a world of peace, a world of wholeness, and a world of blessing, then that is what we must become. What are we waiting for?
אני ואתה נשנה את העולם. אני ואתה אז יבואו כבר כולם. אמרו את זה קודם לפניי, לא משנה. אני ואתה נשנה את העולם. אני ואתה ננסה מההתחלה. יהיה לנו רע אין דבר, זה לא נורא. אמרו את זה קודם לפניי, זה לא משנה. אני ואתה נשנה את העולם. אני ואתה נשנה את העולם. אני ואתה אז יבואו כבר כולם. אמרו את זה קודם לפניי, לא משנה. אני ואתה נשנה את העולם. אני ואתה נשנה את העולם.
Now please rise as you're able for our closing hymn and the benediction. The hymn is This Little Light of Mine, number 118 in the hymnals, and the words are on the screen.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. building up a world. I'm gonna let it shine, building up a world. I'm gonna let it shine, building up a world. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Im Tirtzu Ein Zo Agada. The father of Zionism, Theodor Herzl, uttered those prophetic words, "If you will it, then it will be more than a dream." O God, bless us with the wisdom, courage, and strength necessary to discern the ways in which we can act to make our dream of a better world into our reality. We pray that you will grant us peace, shalom, yet we know that we must be the ones who act to make that blessing a reality. Help us to work together alongside our brothers and sisters to recognize our common ground, overcome our differences, and build the better world that we know is possible. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, with your aid, O God, may we build a world of peace, a world of compassion, and a world of love, as together we say, Amen.